It actually started on Eagle Island up in Maine, where Cynthia Spencer Summers. And once I had a little bit of text, there was an empty house up there. We call it the Philadelphia House. And it had this ratty old piano with no sustained pedal or anything else on it. But I don't require anything fancy to work. And a lot of the first movement came out there. When I came back to Aspen, and the first movement is sort of a wide open, almost introspective beginning to the piece. The second, the intensity builds in the second, and in the third it breaks loose like nobody's business. But when I came back then, I had been accepted to an artist colony in California called the Dorland Mountain Arts Colony. They take 6 artists at a time. There's no electricity, no phones. And when I got there, I had my own house and a 9-foot Steinway that was performed on by Rachmaninoff earlier in the century. And I refined the first movement there. The second, third, fourth, and fifth all came out in about a 3.5-week period, which for me was remarkable. I mean, there were some days when I just looked up and said, stop. But I couldn't. And somebody once told me that if you really find what your heart loves to do, you'll never have to go to work again. And, I was doing like 18 and 20-hour days, and it felt like nothing. I mean, it was the most joyous 4 weeks of my life. And the whole thing poured out. Now, when it pours out in actually this form. This is the choral book. So these are all the choral parts, and I write then a piano part that goes with it. When I came back, I refined the choral book, so that it was, more to my liking. The basic forms were all there, and it was actually pretty done. Then I take the piano part and I do the orchestration, which for me is very time-consuming. But it was a remarkable experience, and it's just. Well, you're going to hear it tonight. I mean, a lot of people came up last night and were just so thoroughly moved. It's closer to an oratorio or opera than anything I've ever written, in that every character or every soloist actually is playing a character. Dan Fosha does a beautiful job as Jesus. Very interesting for me to write his contract. I usually put violin 1, bassoon 1. I'm standing in my kitchen and I fill out his contract and I go, Jesus. I think I might have called somebody at that point and said, I think I'm going to go to heaven, I'm paying him. But the music itself, I mean, it literally just absolutely poured out. In terms of mood, this piece has more mood swings than anything I've ever written as well. We didn't know how long the piece was until last night. In the fourth movement, when Jesus finally gives up his spirit, 2 things happen. First of all, the women sing, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." One of the criminals then sings a descant on top of that. But at the end of the fourth movement, everything just stops. And the choir sings maybe a 30-second little piece, I think you got from a convent in England, "In stillness nailed, all change, all circumstance, to love's embrace." And it's... one of the singers just back there said to me, "We've really got to do really well on that chorale tonight because it's the money shot." And it is just, everything. As a group tonight, we will have already been through so much that when it all just stops and that chorale happens, it's just incredible, just incredible. When Judy comes out, Judy Shea Burns, who was playing the role of Mary Magdalene, that fifth movement aria, it is the prettiest thing I've ever written. It was about midnight or 1 in the morning at Dorland Mountain Arts Colony, and I sat down, and 45 minutes later or so, the whole aria was done. And the next day, the director of the place came over and said, "What was that?" Apparently she was lying in bed with her windows open and didn't want it to stop. She just wanted me to do it all night. And it's one of the most, and if you have a text like this woman compiled, half the job is already done. When you look at some of the words that I set, it just makes the job so much easier. And I knew I couldn't just write a normal passion. Last year when I premiered the Requiem, you know, I had 4 of the Latin sections from the Catholic Mass. I also had a Buddhist prayer, a Native American prayer. There was a Hindu prayer. And this obviously is all from the Christian faith. But next year, the piece I'm writing is called Creation, and it will be a compilation then of the creation stories from many of the faiths on the planet. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because I believe that religion is a wonderful thing unless you build walls around your own particular faith and put it above everything else on the planet. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have going on out there today. And so by combining, when I looked into the Requiem, you know, it was like, well, they're all kind of saying the same thing, only in different ways. And I'm a firm believer that you can be as solid as you want in your own faith, but don't build a wall. Don't exclude everyone else, because that seems to be the root of so many problems that we have going on. I'm wandering away now from the Passion. This is almost turning into a sermon, and she's the priest.
Well, just a few things to wrap up. You'll hear, for me, this piece is more than anything else, as I thought about it, a huge tone poem in which the actors and the characters and the music and the ancient text all move together, and you as audience are part of that. That there was something for me on Thursday night when I sat out just to listen to Balance and look at how the actors looked, and to have the experience of having 80 singers from up and down the valley opening their mouths and singing, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes of God," made me realize the miraculous dimension of this, that in a world that's just torn by so much hatred and so much violence and so much sensationalism at the expense of the story, that here in this room tonight, I think you'll be a part of people proclaiming something and participating in something that's a little miracle. And so I hope in that spirit we can all, you know, give ourselves to it. I'd like to end tonight by just making a special thank you and a special welcoming and recognition to where this all began. We have in attendance tonight somewhere back there Father Theophane's sister and brother and family members. Would you feel comfortable standing up just so we can see you and meet you? They've flown in some cases from New York. Thank you, thank you. Theophane was such an inspiration for all of us. And I don't want to let the opportunity go without also noticing that sitting back there in a pillar of rose are many of my friends and brothers, the monks of St. Benedict's Monastery, who were Theophane's brothers. And for so many years in my own life and others, they have modeled, witnessed, lived a gentler and more inclusive Christianity that proclaims in every motion of their life this message that you'll hear tonight. So to Father Joseph and all the monks, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to say one more thing. I'm going to end by saying that as a composer, it's really hard to make a living. And I think I have a call into Mel Gibson, because he made $300 million on the movie and I made $4,000 on 10 months of work for the piece. The 5th installment of the 5 sacred pieces, as I said, will be called Creation. I already have a lot of the text, and quite frankly, I'm going to begin probably a week from Monday putting it together and starting to write it. Anyone who is interested in participating in the commission process is more than welcome to call me. It's actually, I think, very important, and not just for music, but for all art, to have people support it in that way. It helps to perpetuate traditions, but also to create something new. And the more we can create that is new, the more we have growth. If nobody responds, I'm going to write it anyway. And a year from now, you'll be sitting here and we'll be chatting again. Because this is the little priest that could, and I'm the little composer that will. Thank you very much and enjoy the concert.
Thank you.